I only wanted to indulge in my fandom. I wanted to prove more than anyone else that I loved that work, to have it acknowledged. Even after the story ended, I just wanted to keep watching over the characters' lives. As a superfan like any other, I was granted an opportunity that every other fan would envy. And as a result, I was dying in real time. Fuck off, hack. Master, are you all right? Bang, bang, bang. Someone was urgently pounding on the door, but I didn't have an ounce of energy to spare for that. I feel like I'm going to die. No, this isn't a joke or an exaggeration. At this rate, I'll surely be dead within a year. No, within 3 months. Damn it, cough. I covered my mouth with my hand and coughed. Something mixed with blood spat out from within. Tiny fragments of metal, barely the size of a baby's fingernail. God damn it. As those metal shards tore through my throat, the bleeding worsened and my coughing grew more violent. Only after a long spell of hacking up blood was I able to cling to the slippery edge of consciousness. I gripped the sink to keep from collapsing to the floor. Losing consciousness and lying down might feel easier, but my pride wouldn't allow it. No, more precisely, my pride wouldn't allow it. My formidable ego wouldn't even tolerate cursing aloud, so I had to vent my rage silently. I'm screwed. I'm going to die without accomplishing anything. I felt pathetic for once, believing that choosing this body was the greatest decision. All my perfect plans in my head had been ruined by a single factor, an incurable disease. Ha. I summoned what little strength remained and lifted my head to stare at the wash basin ahead of me. Detecting my gaze, the smart mirror immediately displayed my face. Greetings, Master Aaron. Your health score today is 11 points. Abnormal substance reactions detected in 123 body areas, including heart, lungs, and kidneys. It is recommended you visit a hospital promptly. Shall I place an emergency call to your primary physician? Shut up and just show my face. Cancel. The pop-up with my doctor's number vanished, and soon the face of a young man appeared in view. I couldn't help but let out a hollow laugh. Even in this situation, he still cares about looking sharp. His black hair was neatly slicked back with pomade, his sharp eyes glinting with an amber hue. His jawline was poised yet masculine. Even I, a man, would be smitten by those looks. By the immutable law of originals, in his previous life he would have been a breathtaking beauty you couldn't match even by pouring in billions. Even the blood at the corner of his mouth and the pallor of his skin from that fatal disease seemed almost staged to amplify his beauty. Aaron Stingray. Wiping the blood from my lips, I murmured the name that had now become mine. Aaron Stingray. The villain who appeared in Volume 2 of my favorite novel, The Cyber-Module Necromancer, threatened the protagonist, but exited early. He was the first son of the evil conglomerate Stingray Corporation, the only figure in the entire novel who genuinely prevented the protagonist from outright victory. In other words, one of the strongest in the entire world. That part is fine, but the problem was that this guy's body was on borrowed time. The cause was a malfunction of the military-grade nanomachine atom implanted in his body. They said it was a 1 in 5 million chance, but unlucky Aaron Stingray was the one hit by it. The sharp metallic substances produced throughout his body were corroding his organs, edging him slowly closer to death. This was also why such a powerful figure was defeated early on by the otherwise weak protagonist. He succumbed to this disease mid-battle. In the novel, the protagonist even explained, if he hadn't been sick, I definitely would have died by his hand. But if you ask how a mere novel reader like me became such an extraordinary guy, who can I blame? It was my choice. 2 weeks ago, to commemorate the conclusion of the Cyber-Module Necromancer, the official site posted an announcement. Answer all the quiz questions correctly, and they'll give an amazing prize. The quiz questions were related to the novel's content. The unusual aspect was that they weren't multiple choice or short answer, they were essay questions. For example, Question 1. In Chapter 28, explain why the female lead Erie Ellisville said I'm sorry to the protagonist, and describe her state of mind, within 300 characters. Question 2. In Chapter 35, link the objective mentioned by Genius Modular Miu to the episode 51 storyline, within 300 characters. What is this, a quiz or a thesis assignment? Even with an open book, only someone who truly knew the novel could answer them. They were meant to gauge how deeply you understood the story and its characters. As a self-proclaimed hardcore fan of the cyber module Necromancer, I spent about 4 hours crafting neat answers for every question. And the final question, it was different from the rest. The honest question, would you like to live in the world of the cyber module Necromancer? If so, which character would you become, and why? Though the novel's world was bleak beyond measure, I immediately answered yes. After all, my real life was equally grim. There was more hope in the story with my favorite characters. As for who I wanted to become, I wrote without hesitation. Aaron Stingray. I listed a few reasons for choosing him. First, as the eldest son of the Stingray conglomerate, Aaron Stingray possessed extraordinary beauty and wealth. In any world, money and looks make life worth living. Second, before falling ill, Aaron Stingray was the strongest combatant in the world, stronger than even the protagonist. If you have power, you can brush aside most threats. Third, since he exited the story early, he wouldn't influence later events. In an additional note, I wrote, of course, there's the time limit issue, but it's easily solved by fixing the nanomachine malfunction. If I become Aaron, I'll use his wealth and talent to cure the disease, then sit back a step and watch my favorite characters' journeys with satisfaction. Yes, fandom. I loved the novel's characters more than anyone else. Though they were fictional, they were the benefactors who let me forget my miserable real life. And since he died early, I could lie low like I was dead and not affect the later plot. I want to watch over my favorites' journeys. But I don't want to suffer by directly involving myself in the story. I just want to enjoy the sweet part. The character best suited to satisfy that fandom desire was none other than Aaron Stingray. So I wrote that happy daydream, which I had rehearsed hundreds of times alone, and the answer to the final question, reviewed it 3 times, and hit submit. And then, 4 days ago, the event winners were announced. I went straight to the page and, to my astonishment, saw my name in first place in the quiz event. Merchandise! Official merchandise! I was thrilled, imagining what special gift the author had prepared, only to suddenly lose consciousness as light spilled from the monitor. And when I woke up again, this is what happened. Heck! Another coughing fit began. I gulped down painkillers placed by the sink with tap water. They worked so well that the coughing and the stabbing pain all but stopped immediately. Phew! Only then was I able to catch my breath. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead with a handkerchief and left the bathroom. I collapsed onto a large sofa in a spacious room and began lamenting my fate. Possession is fine. Unlike other web novels, I wasn't dragged here against my will, and I got possessed into the character I wanted. Besides, I'd won first place in the official event. In other words, I was the person who understood this work and its world second only to the author. I was confident I could somehow correct any deviation in the plot caused by my possession. So all that remained was to execute the specific plans I'd laid out in my previous life. But there was one completely unexpected problem. I'm in so much pain. I'm in agonizing pain. Underestimating this rare incurable disease was the only mistake I made. If I didn't take medicine regularly, excruciating pain would descend. After taking it, my mind would go fuzzy and thoughts wouldn't function properly. Right now, I still feel like I'm floating on clouds because I just took a pill. At least when I sober up, I can manage a few hours of normal life without passing out. Not nearly enough to carry out my plan properly, but it's something. I marvel at how the original Aaron Stingray, with this damned disease, could have overwhelmed the original protagonist. Of course, he pressed on and ultimately died. My strength is draining. As the medicine's effect peaked again, my eyelids began to droop. This pattern, taking pills, drifting to sleep, waking in agony, seeking painkillers, had defined my life these past few days since possessing this body. I need to find that quickly. Just as my vision started to darken, the door suddenly burst open. Master Aaron? The person calling my name as she entered was a woman with long black hair and straight-cut bangs. Thanks to Aaron's memories, I immediately recognized her. Maria? My personal secretary and attendant. Raised from childhood in the Stingray conglomerate as a capable combat weapon and subordinate. Though she appeared a delicate East Asian beauty, I knew the truth. Her modified body housed firepower strong enough to level a SWAT team. Yet even facing such a human weapon, I felt no fear. My lips moved on their own in a tone dripping with arrogance. How rude of you, Maria! I am sorry, but considering your lordship's health condition. Quiet, I know my body best. This isn't something you should meddle in. I'm sorry. Maria immediately dropped to one knee like a knight, lowering her head. Her shoulders trembled slightly, betraying her anxiety. The emotion radiating from her was fear and awe. It showed just how terrifying the name Aaron Stingray was to her. But unlike the original Aaron, I had no hobby of tormenting beautiful women. I couldn't remain a slave to this body's desires forever. Yeah, stand up. More importantly, what about that? Have you found it? That. The first step in my plan. The clue to cure this damned body. Maria's face turned pale at my question. She didn't answer, but I knew immediately it meant she hadn't found it yet. A surge of rage threatened to engulf me. My life was in danger, and these people couldn't accomplish a single simple task. At that moment, a new thought cooled my mind. How? A sense of dissonance flickered through my head. Though still somewhat foggy from the pills, I couldn't ignore it. Something's off. In the novel, Stingray Corporation boasted intelligence so vast it could locate any nameless orphan in the slums within a day. Yet the eldest son of the Stingray family, myself, had personally instructed them to find what was vital to my survival, and 4 days had passed with no results. This might not be just the incompetence of my subordinates. I closed my eyes and rapidly reviewed the novel's events and settings in my mind. Aaron Stingray, eldest son of the Stingray conglomerate, the city's largest arms manufacturer. Above me was my father, the conglomerate's head. Below me were my 2 younger brothers. Indeed, though the author never explicitly revealed that setting in the novel, it was certainly possible. Having reached the conclusion in an instant, I struggled to rise and said, I'm going out. Prepare my clothes. Where are you going? The upper industrial district of Sector E. Watching you fools is less bearable than going myself. But master, Sector E is notoriously dangerous for public safety. Dangerous? What? I misspoke. When I glared at Maria, she bowed her head in apology. But the only thing threatening me isn't the thugs of Sector E but this damned disease. I can't leave my life in others' hands. I have to find it myself. If I fail, I'll follow the original timeline and die. And by whose hands? My family's.